Hi, everyone, and welcome to the 3PGC webinar. 3PGC, or the Three Principles Global Community, is a nonprofit organization that's committed to bringing an understanding of the three principles to people throughout the world. Today, we have Linda Pransky with us, which is always a wonderful experience. Linda went to graduate school at the University of Washington in 1975. She specialized in psychosocial nursing because she had an interest in learning how people change. She learned techniques and approaches to helping people, but nothing seemed long-lasting and beneficial. When she met Sydney Banks in 1976, she saw a way for people to really change. Her vision became one of helping people seek real and long-lasting change. Linda is currently on the executive committee of the Three Principles Global Community and is a recent faculty member for the One Thought Institute and a partner at Pransky & Associates. Linda, thanks so much for joining us and agreeing to do this webinar.
You're welcome, and I'm happy to do it. It's the whole idea of change is such an interesting topic and an interesting phenomena, because change to me is a phenomena. And I'm going to go back in history a little bit before I went to graduate school, because when I was, I don't know, 18, 19, I was thinking about change and how people changed, and more specifically, how I would change, because I didn't like myself so much the way I was. Like, I thought there were a lot of things wrong with me. And in a way, there were, but in a way, as I started to understand what it meant to be a human being, I realized yes and no. In other words, I realized besides how people change, you also how people negotiate being a human being, how people negotiate frailty within their own mind, which is a fascinating thing to me, because it's a way of self-acceptance and understanding the role of thought to create a form that you don't like. Anyway, I digress here. So I want to start when I was 18 and 19, and I was thinking, oh my goodness, how am I going to get through life such as I am? I'm supposed to be an adult, but I don't know how successful I'm going to be given how I am. And let me tell you how I saw myself. How I saw myself was I would have a lot of mental confusion, which didn't feel good. So I felt confused a lot as opposed to clear. And I lived in confusion a lot of the time, and it wasn't a nice feeling. And it seemed to get in the way. The other thing that happened to me is that I would get what I wouldn't say that then, I would say it now. I get reactive to life, or I get reactive to my thinking about life. In other words, I get upset a lot about things when they didn't go my way. I get my feelings hurt. Somebody would say something, I get the experience of having my feelings hurt. And the problem was, and I didn't know what the problem was then. In retrospect, I know what the problem was. The problem was that I dwell. I get my feelings hurt, and then I dwell in it. Rather than get over it, I dwell in it. And then the other thing that I was up against, a challenge, was I would just drop into these moods and stay there and stop my life because I was in a mood. So I was up against three things that they were impediments: moods, upset or reactivity, and confusion. Okay. So what I decided to do was go into psychology, basically because I wanted to see how I could change myself. How could I change that? I wanted to change that. I didn't want to be in confusion. I didn't want to be a prisoner of my moods, and I didn't want to be so upset all the time. But I didn't understand how to wrap my arms around those things in me. So I went to graduate school in psychology in the School of Nursing, because I had a bachelor's degree in nursing. So I went on to a master's because there was a psychology department within the Department of Nursing. And what I learned, my focus was individuals, groups, and families. And I was learning basically techniques and processes for helping people, like step A, step B, step C, and step D. Here's what you do to help people get better. So I learned all these techniques, and I go apply these techniques to my individuals, groups, and families. But and it would look like something was going to happen, but nothing happened. There was no change. People weren't seeing anything really differently, or if they did see something differently, they couldn't hold it. They couldn't make it happen, or they weren't feeling any better about their situation. So they would communicate. I teach them to communicate, and they communicate and they think, great, we're communicating, but nothing changed. Or we're expressing our feelings, getting over our bad feeling by expressing it, but then they never really got over their bad feeling. So I would go back to my instructors and I'd say, you know, I'm doing what you're telling me to do. I'm doing all of these techniques and processes with my families, individuals, and groups. And it seems it's really interesting and it looks very hopeful, but there is, in my mind, no change. It's like they aren't changing. They're not becoming something else. And my instructors would say, well, just keep doing it. Keep doing it. You'll get there. Keep doing it. So I did this a number of times over a period of a year where I can keep going back and saying, well, they're not changing. What do I do? And they keep telling me. So at one point, I remember exactly where I was. I was walking over this, there was a bridge over the highway from the health science buildings where I was going to school at the University of Washington in Seattle. And there was a bridge over the highway to the main campus. And I was walking from the health science buildings to the main campus. And I remember being in the middle of the bridge when I realized, I had this realization, they don't know. They don't know. My instructors don't know. They don't know what changes. They don't know. And what I did was something very immature. I got very upset and quit school. And moved to California, moved to San Francisco, where everything, this was in the late 70s, mid to late 70s, where everything, it was the new age movement in psychology. It was like Est and LifeSpring, and there was a million seminars on everything. It was the cutting edge of the new age movement in terms of psychology. And I moved down there and I did everything. I signed up for everything and just learned a whole lot more techniques and processes. It's very interesting, very dynamic, but still no change. The only change that happened to me in retrospect is I started to feel the softness in me go, and I started to feel myself get emotionally hard. That would have been a change. But I didn't know that being emotionally hard was a good thing. You know, I wondered about that. Being emotionally hard, you know, not getting affected by things, not letting people in or life in. And then I met Sydney Banks just by happenstance. It was just serendipity. It was George's partner at the time, John Enright, was visiting a friend of his on Salt Spring, who was the head of Cold Mountain, which was the equivalent of Esalen Institute in California. And this man, his name was Val, and he had been over to see Sydney Banks in Salt Spring Island, and he was talking to John about Sid and how Sid would just talk to people and it helped them. And maybe John should go to one of Sid's lectures and see what Sid was about. So John did, and he went and he couldn't see what Sid was doing. He couldn't see the process or technique that Sid was using. And yet people seemed to be affected. So he was very intrigued and very perplexed. And he called George and said, you need to come to Salt Spring and listen to this guy, because he seems to be affecting people in a positive way, but there's no technique and there's no process. I can't see it. I need you to come and see it. So George said to me, well, do you want to go to Salt Spring to see this guy? And I said, well, not really. I thought we were going on vacation down to Tasahari Hot Springs. I really want to go to Tasahari Hot Springs, which is in the other direction. He says, well, would you mind, if we went to Salt Spring? John, John's kind of in a tizzy about this guy, and I'd really like to go. And I said, okay. So off to Salt Spring we went, which is an island off of Vancouver, Canada. And we go up there, and I mean, it's just it's a beautiful island. And at the time it had this little teeny town, which is now much bigger, but not all that big. But the town was called Ganges. And so we get there and we go into this one of like 2 restaurants that they have in Ganges. And we're sitting there eating, and all of a sudden we hear John's name mentioned by this woman at another table. And so we went over and said, oh, you know John Enright? And she said, yeah. And we said, well, where is he? Well, there's no cell phones then, right? There's no cell phones. So we can't call John and find out where he is. And so she said, oh, well, he's going to be at Sid's lecture tonight. And so we said, well, where's Sid's lecture? And she told us. And so we met up with John that evening at the lecture. And it was really interesting because I'm sitting there listening to Sid, and I can see that people are very pleased with him. And I have no idea what he's talking about. I'm just like, what is he talking about? And I'm not getting affected, except I am getting affected by the people around me because I'm annoyed at how positive they are. That's how I was affected. I was distracted and annoyed by how positive these people were that were listening to Sid Banks. But when I would stop paying attention to the people around me and focus on Sid, I'm like, I liked the man. I thought he was a very nice person. He wasn't at all annoying, but I couldn't understand him. So after the lecture, George was like all over chatting up everybody about how they'd been affected by Sid. And then we got invited to Sid's house because we were psychologists, and he was interested in the fact that we were psychologists. And in his mind, maybe psychology would be the venue to get his message out. We didn't know that at the time, but that's why he was interested in us. So we went to his house, and he was, we had everybody that went to his house had tea and cookies. So we give everybody tea and cookies. So as we're drinking our tea and eating our cookies, he says, well, what do you do with people? And we were like surprised because it was such a simple question. What do you do with people? Well, we take them into their negative past so that they can express it, get over their negativity, and have a catharsis. And we teach them how to communicate and express themselves. And then we talked about what else we did. And Sid said, well, does it work? Do people change? See, that's what he said, do people change? And we're like, this was so embarrassing. It was so excruciatingly embarrassing because we didn't know. We didn't know. We were puzzled, like, well, do they change? Well, we realized we hadn't got there yet. We were still in the process of expression and catharsis and teaching. And did we ever get there? Well, the only place we got with the couples is they got divorced, which we thought was a good idea, better now than later. But we didn't know. It's like we didn't know. And we were like kind of shocked and embarrassed. And George said to me, after Sid asked the questions, like, asked that question, and we were sitting there kind of in this state of being shocked, he said, let's go. We need to catch the ferry. We caught the ferry, and we didn't need to catch the ferry, but George wanted to get out of there. And he was really upset. He was really angry. It's like, who is that man to question us? And he's not even educated, doesn't even have a college education. Who is he to question what we do? So we're driving back to San Francisco from Salt Spring, and we happened to stop at a friend of ours in Eugene, Oregon, Roger Mills. And we're telling Roger Mills about our experience and this man who talks to people and affects them, and then has the nerve to question what we do with people. And we're going on and on and on. Well, fast forward 6 months. Unbeknownst to us, Roger goes up to listen to Sid. And we see him 6 months later, and I can see a change in Roger, which is shocking to me. Because in my mind, Roger Mills would be the last person in the world to change. I didn't tell him that, but I saw this change in him, and I asked him about it, and he said, well, you know, after you guys came to Eugene, I went up to listen to Sid, and I got affected by it. And I said, well, what do you mean you got affected? And he says, well, I had insights. And I said, what do you mean insights? He says, well, I saw things that I didn't know to be true, but I saw to be true about people, about me, and about life. And I said, well, what did you see? And he started to explain to me what he saw, and I didn't understand, but I wanted what Roger had. I wanted what Roger had. And I said, okay, I'm going to go up there, and I'm going to sit in the front row, and I'm going to listen to Sid until I get some of what you got, which is insight about life or human beings or you or something. So I went up, I got in the front row, and I sat there, and I listened as hard as I could, and nothing happened. So I called Roger, and I said, well, Roger, I sat and I listened as hard as I could, and nothing. I didn't have any insight. Of course, I didn't really understand what Roger meant by insight. I didn't really fully understand. I kind of got it, but not really. Because he used the analogy with me, Roger used the analogy with me that, you know how you're looking for your keys and you can't find your keys, and then you kind of clear your head, and then all of a sudden you realize where your keys are. He says, well, that's an insight. And it's like, well, I've had those insights, you know, where my head would clear and I'd realize where my keys were. But I didn't, you know, think much of the fact that I would have an insight like that. So I called Roger and I complained to him, and I told him that I was listening as hard as I could. And he said, well, you're listening wrong. I said, what do you mean listening wrong? I'm really paying attention. I'm thinking about what he's saying. I'm analyzing it. I'm comparing it to what I know. I'm criticizing it. He says, no. You don't want to be thinking while he's talking. I said, what do you mean not thinking while he's talking? Well, you want to have a clear mind. And what do you mean a clear mind? I didn't know what a clear mind was. Remember back to confusion, how I said that was one of the things I wanted to change? Well, confusion is just a lot of thinking that makes confusion, that experience confusion. It's a lot of different logical types that are fighting, competing, that creates confusion. It's a lot of non sequiturs in your brain anyway, but it's all thought. And I didn't know that I was thinking. I didn't know there was a difference between a clear mind and a busy mind, a clear mind and a confused mind, because I didn't know. I'd forgotten what a clear mind was. So I was perplexed, because it's like, how do you make a clear mind happen when you're thinking all the time? Roger said, well, I don't know, you have to figure that one out. Well, when he said figure it out, I'm like trying to figure it out, which is the wrong way to go. To try to figure out to have a clear mind, it just makes more thinking. So anyway, I go back to another Sid lecture. So at this point in my life, I'm going back and forth to Salt Spring Island from California as much as I possibly can. And I'm sitting there in front of Sid, and I'm thinking a mile a minute, not getting anything. But bless my heart for my stubbornness. I was stubborn. And I was like, if Roger can get this, I can get this. So I keep going back with my busy mind, trying to work out how to get a clear mind, how to listen. When all of a sudden, for some reason, I have this massive insight. And basically my insight is my moods are made of my thinking. And I realized it was true. The truth is, see, an insight, you realize something true psychologically or spiritually, or you realize something true about the human condition. That's what an insight does for you, other than the kind of insight that requires, about your keys, which is nice. It's nice to have an insight about where your keys are, but you could have deeper insights about people, about how a person functions psychologically. Anyway, I had this very deep insight. It was like this flash where, oh my God, moods are thought. My moods are made of thought. Well, what else did I think they were made of? And I realized, and sounds really stupid, but when I reflected on what I thought, which I'd never done before, I realized that what I thought was possible, that God was punishing me. That's why I was having low moods. That was the best I could come up with. God was punishing me. That was why. But when I realized my moods were made of thought, it was like I stopped being afraid of my moods. And when I stopped being afraid of my moods, it's like my moods shrunk. They became, instead of this being overwhelmed by my moods and essentially having to stop my life and kind of go into my bedroom and get under my covers for a couple days and stop my life, I could just go about my life with my moods. I didn't have to stop my life anymore. So one impediment, that was true change. That was true change. And I realized that change happens through insight. In other words, you can't make change happen intellectually. And that's what I realized. Processes and techniques are intellectual endeavors. And change happens through insight. And insight is just a deeper, I don't know how to explain it, but you've all had insights, I know that. But insights happen from a deeper frame of reference, a deeper way of thinking. And I realize that anybody can have insight. Anybody can have insight about themselves that can change you. That's the only way to get true change is through insight. Like another insight I had, which changed my life, is I ran into Sid at a restaurant, one of the two restaurants in Ganges, and we were the only two people in the restaurant. So I went up to him and I asked him if I could sit with him. And he said, well, of course, dearie. And he called every woman dearie because he was Scottish. And I guess that was what you did if you were Scottish, is that you would call women dearie. It was very sweet. So he said, yes, dearie, sit down. And I said, well, can I ask you some questions? It was really hard for me. First, it was hard for me to go up to him because I was scared to death of him, because I felt like he could see everything about me. I was totally visible, and I was. I felt like he could see all of my, what I would call my shit show, all my frailties, and he could. But he was so non-judgmental. He was so accepting of people. Which was so cool, because he just accepted human beings, and he just saw human frailty as thought. Like, I realized, see, I had so many realizations being around Sid, as I realized I wasn't my thinking. See, I thought I was my thinking. I'm not my thinking. I'm bigger than my thinking. I create my thinking. I create my thinking through the power of thought, through the principle of thought. I create my thinking, or, that's actually, my thinking is created through that would be more accurate. My thinking is created through the principle of thought, the gift of thought, and then I identify with it or not. That's, to the extent that I identify with it, it becomes problematic. It's going back to, myself as 18, I identified with my moods. I identified with my confusion. I identified with being reactive. I identified with those experiences. That was the problem, that I identified with them. I saw them as me. Well, no, they're just experiences. It's not me. And I took the me out of experience. Well, I am this and I am that. I took the I am out of my construction of thought, or my frailties, or what I would call my personality. I took the identification out of it, because you don't have to. It's not required. You don't have to identify with your thinking. It's just a construction. It's a mental form. Thought is just a mental form made of energy and thought. It's experience. It's just, you don't have to identify. You don't have to claim it as you. And I realized that was another huge insight, that I'm not my thinking. What a relief to know that you're not your thinking. Because, if you take on your thinking as you, it becomes such a burden. It's not just a burden because you think it's wrong that you're that way, but then there's certain things you feel like you have to live up to, ways that you claim, oh, I'm this kind of person, so I have to prove it, and I have to live up to, I'm a helpful person. So then you feel like you're driven by your, identification with being a helpful person, or I'm a good person, or I'm a creative person, or I'm a this person, or I'm a that person. But anyway, so back to my story with Sid. So I'm sitting there and I said to Sid, the older I get, the less happy and I'm like 26 now, right? 26 years old. I said, the older I get, the less happy I get, Sid. And I don't understand that. It's like each year I feel less happiness. He says to me, well, do you know what the feeling of happiness is, dearie? And I said, yes. He says, do more of that. I said, do more of that? He says, yeah, do more of that. Do more of the feeling of happiness and less of the feeling of unhappiness. And I'm like, I'm looking at him like, and I'm thinking, that's the stupidest thing anybody could say. I didn't say that out loud, but I'm sure he, saw that I was thinking it. But, he didn't judge me for it. He just, and then I said, thank you, because I respected him so much that I said, thank you, even though I didn't like what he said. So then I said, okay, I have one more question, and that's about my relationship with George, because I just don't see my relationship with George as viable. I said, I want to leave it. It's absolutely no fun. I hate being with him. He says, well, did you used to enjoy being with him? I said, yeah, when we were first together. And we'd only been together for a year. I said, when we were first together, we had a great time. He says, well, so you enjoyed him? Oh, God, yes. So he says, of course, all you guys know what's coming. Do more of that. And less of not enjoying him, less of hating him, more of enjoying. And again, I'm like, that's the stupidest thing anybody could say. But again, because I respected him so much, I thanked him. And then I got up and I felt like I felt very dazed, and kind of turned around. And I got up and I left the table and I'm walking to my car. And I remember exactly where I was on this path from the restaurant to my car. And two pennies dropped. One was Linda, and this insight talked to me. It said, Linda, if you wait to fix yourself to be happy, you will never be happy. If you wait to fix yourself to be happy, you will never be happy. You have to be happy first. And then if you want to, you can fix yourself, but you don't have to. And I went, oh my God, that is so true. If I wait to fix myself, I'll never be happy. I have to be happy in spite of the fact that in my mind, I'm not fixed. In my mind, I'm not right. And even though I'm not right, I have to be happy. And I went, oh my God, that's true. And that changed me. That absolutely changed me. I got my happiness back. And then after that insight, the second penny dropped and I went, oh my God, no wonder I can't do relationships, because I start out enjoying them and then I go to criticizing them. And nobody wants to be criticized. If you criticize somebody, they come back at you or they run from you. So no wonder we're fighting or arguing all the time, because I'm constantly telling him what's wrong with him and how he needs to change. And it was like, oh my goodness. No wonder I have a bad relationship. I'm looking to fix him too before I can enjoy the relationship. And I realized I had to enjoy the relationship in spite of things that I saw that were wrong with it. And I had to enjoy George in spite of the fact that I saw things wrong with him. It was such a huge insight, because I've been living my life trying to fix me, trying to fix other people, trying to fix my life, and putting my own enjoyment of other people and happiness on hold before in order to, as soon as I could fix the world, fix my relationships and fix me, then I could be happy. And I realized I'd die unhappy if I did that. So it changed me, it changed George, in my relationship with George, because I just stopped criticizing him. Not completely. There's no perfection here. There's absolutely no perfection here. But enough where we had a good relationship, where our relationship flipped around from bad to good. And we just celebrated, our 39th wedding anniversary this month. Can't believe we've been together. Well, we've been together like 44 years, but we've been married for 39. And it's like, where did the time go? It's like, it seems like a minute. So change happens through insight. And back to my 18-year-old self, where I felt like there was something really wrong with me because I was confused and because I was moody, well, more than moody, and because I was reactive. I get emotionally reactive a lot. Later, I realized there's nothing wrong with me. The problem was that I just dwelled in those things. Well, I mean, what changed my moods was understanding that was thought, but also I saw dwelling as thought. See, it doesn't matter how emotionally reactive I was if I didn't dwell in it. I'd just get over it in a minute. And confusion, it was just adding thought to thought to thought to thought to thought and having so much thinking going on in my head that I couldn't see it straight. So it was just, all I saw was I was thinking too much and dwelling too much. Nothing wrong with me. There's absolutely nothing wrong with me. There was nothing to fix. I just had to minus a lot of thinking. And there were certain ways I found to minus it. But change happens through understanding or insight around what thought does to you, what thought does to you as a human being, what thought does to you, and the insight and the understanding around that allows you to release it. Allows you to relate to thought differently, to relate to your experience differently. That's what insight does. So in a way, it's like to change the word from change to understand. You understand the role of thought in your life, within your experience, within your own mind. You understand the role of thought. That's all. Just understanding the role of thought in you and what it does and how it creates your experience. But anyway, so any questions? Anyone have any questions? Is there anything you'd like me to fill in or talk more about that I've already said? I can talk more about anything that I've said here.
Hi, Linda. Would you mind me asking a question?
Well, it's nice to see you, by the way.
Yeah, likewise. Could you tell a bit more about how you nowadays facilitate insight instead of having people go into more thinking? I know you helped me tremendously. I have the feeling I was a really hard nut to crack to get me out of my analytical thinking and into more insight. So I know you can do it. I wonder if you have any insights to share about that.
Well, here's the thing. It's like, I know we know it's the space, the feeling you bring to people. It's the feeling you bring to people when you're with them that calms their mind. And the talking, like It's like three things, okay? It's the feeling you bring. The feeling calms people. That's what Sid, I don't bring the feeling that Sid brings, but Sid, the feeling that he would bring. And also, like I see that people can do it. In other words, I just see underneath all of their, like me, all underneath their, whatever their version of human frailty is that they're wrapped up in, like me, I see somebody that's extremely healthy psychologically. I see somebody that's good to go, just they're caught up. And they have to see that they're caught up. And then when they see they're caught up, they have that, their version of an insight around that caught upness. See? So when I bring a feeling the best I can, and I understand, which I do, which I see the health in them. I really do. It's not bullshit. You know, it's not an intellectualization. It's not a position. It's not an intellectual position. I do. I see the health in people. I absolutely see the health in people. And then it's just a matter of giving them hope. You can find the answers you want, you know, on the other side of your frailty, on the other side of your thinking, on the other side of your intellect. You can find the answer that you want. It's there. It's absolutely there. You just have to find it, and you can. You absolutely can. The answer is there, and you can find it. So bringing a feeling, bringing hope. And my hope comes from the fact that I see that people can, and people are healthy, and people have it. They can absolutely do it. But you know, when you feel lost in your mind, you know, you get hopeless and you think you can't. But that's just a function of thought. See, that's the falseness. That's the falseness. And you got to get really good at turning your back on the falseness. When you get lost in the woods of your mind, of your thinking, and feel hopeless, that's the falseness. Get very strong and committed to, even when you're in that feeling, that's the falseness. And the truth is on the other side of that feeling, of that experience, where you are a clear mind. You are energy creating form. You are energy creating form. That's what I see, people. You are energy, pure energy, beautiful energy, intelligent energy. I am intelligent energy creating form. And sometimes the form I create is a shit show. But you have to know that it's just a shit show, and it's not the truth. It's not the truth. The truth is you are energy creating form. That's the truth. And the more you see that, the better you are at turning your back on the falseness. Or the more graceful you are in your shit show. Or the more funny you see your shit show. Or the more humble you are about your shit show.
Thank you. That's lovely. Thank you. Oh, sorry.
Anything else? Please ask anything. Ask anything. I mean it. There's nothing you can't. Oh, okay.
Hi.
Hi.
It's Olga. I'll ask first, maybe not related question about resources for teenagers, for example. Would you have, but I learned about you from Rohini and about Rohini and from Alan Friedman. And I'm just wondering, I got your book and George about relationships, but boy, it's coming from fixed. But I have a teenage daughter, and I'm just interested if you have any programs.
You know who you want to contact?
Who?
Is Erica Bugby. She works with teenagers and the principals.
Oh, okay, from Rohini, I think I heard it. Okay.
Yeah, she's really good. That's her thing. She loves working with teenagers. She does it a lot. She's got a lot of experience. She has 2 teenagers, older teenagers now. And she's just, people get results working with her, and she just gets it.
Thank you.
Yeah, get a call with her. She'll just do a call with you, an introductory call. You can she'll do a free introductory call with you.
With me, you mean, and I could bring my daughter right away, right? Meaning, or just me first?
Well, it's just call her up and tell her what you want. She'll help you.
And my second question, if I may. So for example, when I'm in the middle of my shit show, there is a kind of peace already in mind where I understand that the moment I believe that my life would be better if my husband would behave differently, it's false. But in the middle of it, the body, therefore behavior, will react to all those feelings. You know what I mean?
No, say it. You're kind of breaking up a bit, so I can't.
Oh, okay.
Say it again.
You know how at some point when I'm in the middle of, for example, conflict in a marriage.
Right.
So even acting up, there is a slight, at some point, understanding that it's false,
Yeah.
If that my belief that my life would be better if my husband would behave differently is false.
Yeah.
But it's like you can't stop it. You know what I mean? It's like the body, therefore behavior, will react to, will kind of follow the feeling. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I guess I lost track of question. It's just I want to just voice it out. So
what you're saying is that sometimes your feelings get away from you and you act on them.
Often. No, it's almost.
Well, do you sometimes not act on them?
Uh-huh. Okay. Lately, I would tell him that I feel hurt, but I know it's my thing, so just kind of move away. Even though to me, it looks like you the reason, but I know it's me.
Yeah? Well, good for you. That's very responsible. Okay, go ahead.
But so it's almost like, so it's kind of madness, because there's part of me that has already this, I don't know, understanding or belief he does not create the pain. Maybe just his action triggers the pain, right? But then I can't, it's almost like I would still feel hurt and I would withdraw, right? So I'm still kind of responding, and I'm embodying those all false feelings. Am I making sense, man?
Yeah, you are. In other words, are you saying that even though you take responsibility, right? Even though you take responsibility, you still get really hurt and you withdraw?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, do you get over it?
Yeah.
And are you getting over it faster?
Yeah, you're right. Mm.
Now, here's the question. Do you
Right.
think there's something wrong with you that you get your feelings hurt?
Linda, while you were talking about fixing mode,
Yeah.
about like some, there should be, like you were talking about yourself, and yeah, that I need to be fixed. That's true.
No. There's nothing wrong with you that you get your feelings hurt. There's nothing. Everybody gets their feelings hurt. I don't care if they say don't, they're lying. Everybody gets their feelings hurt. Now, can you listen? Can you listen? Okay. Here's the thing. It's just that some people get over it faster than others. See, no, just listen. Just don't think. Don't think. Don't think.
Okay. Thank you.
Don't think. Just listen.
Thank you. Okay.
No, just listen. See, in my mind, the name of the game is getting over yourself, not fixing yourself. Get over yourself. Doesn't matter how much you get your feelings hurt, just get over it. That's the name of the game, getting over yourself. Get over your experience. Just get over it. Because if you try not to have an experience, guess what? That just sets you up. Because it creates a dynamic. I'm not going to have this experience. I'm not going to be a person that gets their feelings hurt. Well, if you're going to be doing that, it's just going to make it worse. Like, there's nothing wrong with you that you get your feelings hurt. It's fine. You just want to get over yourself. That's all. It's wonderful that you take responsibility for it. That's fantastic. You just got to get over it faster. And how you get over hurt feelings is you don't think about them. If you don't think about them, you get over them. And here's how people, no, don't think. Here's how people get over it faster, okay? Don't blame. Blame holds you. And justification holds you. So if you're blaming or justifying, it'll hold, or figuring out who's right or who's wrong.
But then it feels very defenseless. Okay.
Okay, here's the thing. Now just listen. Here's the thing. When you want to be defenseless, in other words, you don't want to defend your hurt feelings. You want to get over them. And then whatever you need, then you go into a different state of mind. You go into a state of mind of strength. Once you get over hurt feelings, you go into a state of mind of strength. You go into a better feeling, which is a state of mind of strength. And in that better feeling, it'll occur to you what you need to do. Like whether you need to talk to your husband or not talk to him, or what you need to do about you. You'll get insight. You'll get better thinking about what to do. But you don't want to defend yourself from when you're in a weak state of mind, in a reactive state of mind. You don't want to defend yourself. You want to get over your reaction. You want to get over yourself. And then you see what to do from a different state of mind. Does that make sense?
Makes perfect sense. But yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm lying a little. It to some part of me makes sense, and then another part kind of like I can sense it kind of.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, because you don't, when you're hurt, anybody that's in a hurt state of mind is not going to think right. They're going to think narrow, right? When you're hurt or upset or angry or,
Yeah,
whatever.
just my attention, this defense thing. So it's not new intellectually, but it's new as I saw it now.
Yeah. So when you're hurt, you want to get over it. And then if it makes sense from a clear mind, a better feeling, then you might want to go and defend your position. You might want to say, you know, here's the deal about this. Or not, you know.
Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. You don't, there's nothing wrong with you. You don't need to fix yourself. There's nothing wrong with you.
Now I just need to stop thinking there's something wrong with my husband and kids and everything. Okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks a lot.
Linda, we're at the top of the hour, but there are several people who have their hands raised. I don't know if you have any extra time. Or...
No, I have extra time.
Okay, we're going to Julianne here next.
Hi, Linda. Can you
Hi.
hear me?
Yeah.
You can hear me. Okay. So I think it's pretty relevant to what you just shared with the person who was just asking the question, because I could almost just substitute self-doubt in, but I'm going to ask the question anyway, which was that it feels like it blocks my knowing. Like if I'm working with clients or thinking about, you know, a next stage of my business, it's like sometimes all I can hear is the self-doubt and I can't really hear like my common sense.
Yeah.
So I guess I wondered if you also just, because you've been working with people for so long, if there were any particular insights you had around self-doubt, or you would say it's really just the same as what you were just sharing.
Well, self-doubt to me is interesting because it's really, you know, I can talk about it a number of ways, because it's, to me, self-doubt is just, again, it's coming from insecurity, and anything that comes from insecurity, you know, you're just not in a good place to think about it. But, you know, like, to me, like when I get into self-doubt, for me, it just doesn't matter what I choose. I'm not sure what, maybe I need to know a little bit more about, like for me, self-doubt is, should I go right or left? And if I'm inside self-doubt, and I have the self-doubt is, should I go right or left? It doesn't, to me, it just indicates it doesn't matter which way. But I don't know if that's what you mean by self-doubt. You may mean something else.
I mean, I guess two specific ones I could give would be like, if I'm thinking about what to do next in my business, it's like I don't even really get clear hits sometimes, or I won't follow the hits that I get because the self-doubt is like noisy. And then another version would be like, if a client gets reactive to me, sometimes my self-doubt will kick in and I hear my noise more than how to help them with where they are.
Well,
so then I'll kind of doubt, like, what's the best.
Well, when a client gets reactive and you go into self-doubt, you get over it?
Yes, but not if I think I can't find if I feel like I can't find something that would be helpful, the self-doubt continues. Like, it's kind of like, I think I'm in the wrong.
Oh, I get it. I get the problem you have. You think you should get the answer when you think you should get the answer.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Well, good luck on that. In other words, when you are like, well, I don't know what to do next in my business, and then you go into self-doubt because nothing's come, Well, if nothing's come, then nothing's come. And if you're in a reaction to a client and you can't get out of it, or you can't see how to get out of it, then you just don't get out of it.
Mm. Yeah, I think one thing I've noticed is that situations course correct at some point, whether I made that happen or not, and me trying to make it happen. This is what I'm hearing you say. Me trying to make it happen is actually getting in the way.
Yeah, when you try to make something happen, it absolutely gets in the way because you're fighting your experience. And every time you fight your experience, no matter how subtle, no matter how reasonable, every time you fight your experience, you basically are holding it in place. So if you think you should be out of self-doubt, you're not going to, if you think you should be out of self-doubt, that's going to hold it in place. If you think you should have an answer right now, that's going to hold it in place. You see?
Okay. Yeah.
See, it's okay not to have an answer. It's okay to not know. Like sometimes you just don't know what to do. And if you don't know what to do, you don't know what to do. And if you can't, and you say, oh, I don't know what to do long enough, so now I have to figure out what to do. Well, guess what? Then you just started getting your own way.
Okay. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
And Jose, you're next.
Where's Jose? Did he leave?
Oh, there you go. Can you hear me?
Okay. Yeah, I can.
Okay. Hi. So I came upon these principles about 5 years ago when I stumbled on Jack Pransky's book, Someone Should Have Told Us, and
Yeah.
They've changed my life in ways that would have been unimaginable to me back then, and still continue. Just when I think it can't get any more profound, it still keeps getting more so. And I've tried to share this with some people, and I'm not very good at it, apparently. The reaction I often get is one of, they get really angry.
Yeah.
Really angry with me.
Yeah.
You know, especially when I try to tell them that, you know, you're not really feeling your circumstances, you're feeling, you're thinking about your circumstances, and then, oh, so you think my problems are all imaginary, you know, that I'm broke, that I'm getting a divorce, this and that, I'm just imagining all that. And no, that's not it at all. And so anyway,
There's one answer to that.
Yes.
Is that since I've been there, done that. You know, when I first learned these principles, I was just making everybody pissed off. Permission. You have to get permission because people, if you talk to them about thought and talk to them, first of all, it's like they think, who are you to be telling me? Yeah. I didn't ask you. And who are you to be telling me that that's not real? So you need to get permission from people in order to help them.
Yeah. I avoid proselytizing.
You what?
I avoid proselytizing about this. Trying to, you know, spread the gospel of the three principles. I don't do that. And in all honesty, you know, people have asked me, you know, they've noticed a change in me, and they've asked me about it, and then I tell them, and they still get angry. Ironically, my wife has shown no interest in this whatsoever, and I've never told her anything about it, and it's had profound impact on her.
Yeah.
Osmosis.
Yeah, because probably she watches you, and
Yeah.
probably you change the dynamic.
Yeah. So
yeah.
I just shut
But
up?
But here's the other thing is if people ask you, gee, there's a change and you talk to me about it, and they get pissed, that's not on you, that's on them. You see? There's a difference between people asking and then you telling. Big difference. If they ask you and you tell them the truth and they get upset, then that's on them. But if they're not asking and you get in their business, that's another thing.
Yeah. Yeah, thank you. That helpful.
Okay, one more.
Anyone?
Well, while somebody is trying to think of a question, Terry says I have to make it some announcements. I hate making announcements, but here we go. George and Elsie Spittle and myself are doing a workshop in La Conner on the 26th, 27th, and 28th of September. And it's on the discoveries of Sid Banks. It should be really good. I mean, the three of us, you know, we love working together. We love being together, and it should be a good time. So that's something that's going to happen the end of September. And then also, George and I are going to be doing a workshop in October, at the end of October, the 24th through the 27th, where we're going to be working with a client. So you get to watch us work with a client in front of the room. So anyway, so there's my announcements. Okay, I'm done.
Can you hear me, Linda?
Yeah.
I did have a comment, not a question. Many years ago, John Enright made the statement that what we see in others is in ourselves. That was many years ago. And so when you were talking about seeing a beautiful feeling in Sid, but you didn't present that same feeling, I want to caution you that it's got to be there because you saw it in Sid. So don't cut yourself short.
Well, thank you for that.
Because some of the biggest insights that I've had that have really helped me have been after I've had seminars or whatever with you and George. So yeah, don't cut yourself short.
Well, maybe I'm too humble. What do you think?
Yeah.
Can anybody be too humble? I don't know. Well, listen, you guys, thank you for showing up. This has been really fun. I really appreciate you listening to me.
Thank you.
Oh, go ahead.
I was just going to say thank you so much. I didn't want to cut you off, though.
No, I just wanted to say I really appreciate you guys listening. I love doing these.
Yeah, it was really beautiful. And I just want to let everybody know, I put the Pransky and Associate link URL into the chat if you want to learn more about it, and I'll also post it under the recording. So anybody who would like to know more about the programs that Linda mentioned now or what they're having in the future, you can find them there. And the next webinar is September 11th, and it's with Dr. Amy Johnson. So hopefully you can all join us live then.